If you're a fan of controversial films, documentaries are a gold mine. Some docs cause such a stir that they're outright banned, and today I'm back to list off some more. We're going to start off the list with The Act of Killing. I remember a lot of people talking about this one when it came out. It definitely made some waves. This 2012 doc was directed by Joshua Oppenheimer, exploring the Indonesian mass deaths 1965 to 66. The film takes a very unique approach. Oppenheimer and his crew had some of the perps of these atrocities actually reenact their crimes right on camera, making for a very chilling and even kind of surreal viewing experience. The film was certainly different and was exploring very heavy subjects, and it received critical acclaim. But along with that, of course, came controversy and bans. The documentary was first released in 2012 and quickly gained international attention, but the Indonesian government weren't too happy about it. The film ended up getting banned in Indonesia because of concerns about its potential to incite violence and disrupt social order. The ban sparked a lot of debate. A lot of people thought the ban was just immoral, showing a reluctance on the government's part to confront very uncomfortable historical truths. But aside from the ban in its home country, the film continued to receive global recognition and even won a bunch of awards. Next, we have the most recent doc on the list, released in 2020, The Dissident. This one was directed by Brian Fogel and explores the brutal death of Saudi Arabian journalist Jamal Khashoggi in the Saudi consulate in Istanbul in 2018. Khashoggi was known for his critical stance against the Saudi government and had sought asylum in the US. The movie delves into Khashoggi's life, work, the events leading up to his death. It heavily implicates the Saudi government in Khashoggi's death, so it probably comes as no surprise that they were completely opposed to the documentary, viewing it as an attack on the country's reputation. Streaming platforms like Netflix and Amazon just refused to buy it, likely in fear of offending the Saudi government even further. Next, we have India's Daughter. This film was directed by Leslie Udwin, focused on the violent death of Jyoti Singh in Delhi. The film focuses on the aftermath of the event, mainly the public outcry for justice in contrast to the justice system's response. Features interviews with the victim's parents, one of the convicted perpetrators and his defense lawyers are also interviewed. The film also includes discussions with various others, like activists, experts, officials, talking more about the broader issue of gender-based violence in India. When the movie came out, it didn't go so smoothly. It was met with a lot of controversy and legal challenges. The government took issue with the film, believing that it could potentially incite public unrest and hurt the country's image. So the Indian government banned it, preventing its broadcast and distribution within the country. Some felt that the film could help start conversations about gender-based violence, while on the other hand, critics argued that it was just sensationalizing and exploiting a very tragic event. The Man Who Mends Woman. This is a documentary film directed by Terry Michelle, released in 2015. It's about Dr. Denis Mukwege, a Congolese gynecologist and human rights activist known for his work in treating victims of SA in the Dominican Republic of the Congo. The film shed a lot of light on the widespread use of this horrendous crime as a weapon of war in the DRC and the challenges faced by Dr. Mukwege in his mission to heal and empower women. It delves into the politics of the region, looking at issues like armed conflict, gender-based violence, and the plight of the victims. But the film ended up being banned in its home country. The government did not appreciate its portrayal of the country's army in a negative light. Dr. Mukwege went on to do pretty well for himself, though, even winning a Nobel Peace Prize in 2018. Next up is The Cove. So this documentary centers around the annual dolphin hunt in Taiji, Japan. The film was criticized by the Japanese government, leading to restrictions and limited screenings in the country, very limited. The film follows a team of activists, including Rico Berry, a former dolphin trainer turned advocate, who are attempting to bring attention to the brutal practices taking place in Taiji. It showcases the mass slaughter of dolphins and the capturing of some for use in the entertainment industry. It also discusses the environmental impact and potential health risks of consuming dolphin meat. The Japanese government and even many locals were not too pleased with the film. It portrayed a traditional practice in a very negative light. And now, to be fair, it was never officially banned in Japan outright, but it became a pretty difficult movie to see. Some theaters were reluctant to show it. Most of them just did not show it at all. It only ended up playing in a few theaters, and they were surrounded by protesters, and there were concerns about potential legal actions against the team involved in its distribution. Alright, this next one is pretty infamous. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of this before. Faces of Death. This is just one movie in a whole long list of films banned in the UK in the early 80s, primarily low-budget graphic horror movies which became known as video nasties. At one point, video rental stores were literally raided by police, confiscating tapes on the video nasties list. Evil Dead was on there. Really? Faces of Death was one of the most notorious on the list, and I'm focusing on this one today because it was really marketed as a documentary. Turns out it technically wasn't really. There was some genuine archival footage used in the movie, but most of the stuff in it was just staged, but convincingly staged. So, what's the movie about? Well, it supposedly consists of various real footage of people dying in various ways. Pretty much it. It went on to spawn a whole whack load of sequels and imitations, most famously Traces of Death, which I discussed in part 1. If you haven't checked that out yet, please do. Next up, we have the Panama Deception, released in 1992. This one criticized the United States invasion of Panama. It was briefly banned in the United States. The film was directed by Barbara Trent, critically examining the United States military intervention in Panama in 1989. It gives a very detailed analysis of the events leading up to the invasion, the reasons behind it, the consequences of the people in Panama. The film uses a combination of archival footage, interviews, and investigative journalism to give an alternate perspective on the US military action. And this was in direct opposition to the official narrative being given by the government at the time. The doc made the case that the invasion, codenamed Operation Just Cause, was not solely about protecting American citizens or restoring democracy, but also about securing US interests, particularly control of the Panama Canal. The film was banned in Panama, and the public broadcasting service banned it from being broadcast in the US. Despite all that, though, it still received the Academy Award for Best Documentary Feature in 1992. Next up, we have the 1971 documentary Sikkim. This film was commissioned by the King of Sikkim and directed by renowned Indian filmmaker Satyajit Ray, one of the most well-respected and influential filmmakers of all time. The purpose of the doc was to celebrate the sovereignty of Sikkim, a Himalayan kingdom between India and Tibet. But things took a very unfortunate turn. Ray was approached by the King of Sikkim to create a documentary that would showcase the unique cultural and historical aspects of the area, a celebration of its freedom, and then Sikkim became part of India as a state. So the film ended up getting banned, not just by the Indian government, but by the very people who commissioned it in the first place, the authorities of Sikkim. So the doc was kept hidden away, untouched and unseen. It wasn't until 2010, almost 4 decades after it was made, that it saw the light of day. It was screened at the 16th Kolkata Film Festival, but it wasn't around for long. After that initial screening, it was promptly pulled from public viewing once again. Here's one that'll probably ring a bell. Citizenfour, directed by Laura Poitras. This documentary is about Edward Snowden. The film was, unsurprisingly, pretty controversial and faced heavy restrictions in some countries. The film gives an inside look at the revelations made by Edward Snowden, former NSA contractor, regarding mass surveillance programs carried out by the US government. We follow Poitras and journalist Glenn Greenwald as they meet with Snowden in Hong Kong, showing the tense moments leading up to the whistleblowing. The film received a lot of acclaim for its real-time portrayal of a pretty significant moment in modern history, and that ended up winning the Academy Award for Best Doc Feature in 2015. As you could probably imagine though, the US government, particularly intelligence agencies, saw Snowden's actions as treason, and they were concerned that the film could be perceived as glorifying or sympathizing with them. Those same critics also said the doc was too one-sided, not delving into any potential national security implications. Alright, we're rounding off the list with the Venezuelan documentary Chavismo, the plague of the 21st century. This one was released in 2018. It is about the social, political, and economic factors that led to the rise of Hugo Chavez as the president of Venezuela. It explores his abuse of power and society's reaction to it, with heavy focus on the student movement. The documentary also delves into the secrecy surrounding an illness Chavez had. The film gained a good amount of recognition at the time, having a pretty successful festival run, but it was banned in its home country of Venezuela in 2019. The Supreme Tribunal of Justice of Venezuela ordered the ban of the documentary screening at USB and other public universities. The ban was enacted in response to a prosecutor's request who investigated the doc as a potential hate crime or for inciting hate crimes. The decision to ban the doc triggered a response from the USB Teachers Association, which criticized the move as an infringement on freedom of speech in Venezuela. But the director, Gustavo Tovar Arroyo, saw things another way. He actually kind of made the best of the whole thing, calling the situation a, quote, success without precedent. Because, you know what, sometimes bad press and controversy is kind of the best marketing a movie can get, and this ban did generate a lot of interest in the documentary, especially amongst students. With all that said though, I've been your host James, and I'll catch you, yes you specifically, in the next video.